welcome to another one of our Coffee Break Technology Series sessions, and another one focused on cybersecurity. Seems to be a very hot topic, one that a lot of people are interested in learning more about, and we're happy to continue to put these on. Excited to be joined this morning by Josh Moore. Josh Moore is one of our solutions architects and helps a lot of our clients with security measures as well as many other things. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we get started, as always, we have plenty to talk about, plenty to share, but we'd also love to hear from you. So please feel free to use the Q&A section in the Zoom control panel. So you can post a question. We'll see that as you post it, and we'll be able to address those either real time or at the end, or if we can't get to every one of them, we'll follow up directly with you. So that Q&A option in the Zoom control panel. So really what we're here to talk about is, what is good enough as it relates to cybersecurity and your stance, and probably a good opportunity to have a conversation that security is not something that you can set and forget. I think, was it Ron Popeil that had to set it and forget it? This is not that. And so, Josh, you're our cybersecurity subject matter expert here at Levy. You are pursuing certifications and always kind of keeping your eye on what's going on in this space. And we've had several security presentations, over the time through these coffee breaks. Whether it's how technology buying cycles can impact cybersecurity, how security considerations for a hybrid workforce, especially going into and coming out of the pandemic when everybody's working from home. But this session is really all about knowing whether enough is enough, and the cybersecurity stance that an organization has, and how to continue to stay focused on that as things evolve. So when you're talking to our clients and when you're preparing those discussions, how does a business go about evaluating their posture, where they're at, how they view cybersecurity, where they should be headed? What are some key things that they should be considering to evaluate whether they have enough cybersecurity measures in place?
Yeah, and very important, right? To take that baseline and take stock of, what is your current cybersecurity position and where you can move forward. We do have a number of our VCIOs and staff, and as part of a security managed solution provider, there's a lot of those solutions that you can quickly kind of run through to make sure that they're doing the base level of blocking and tackling. Are you doing, email filtering to ensure you're not getting phishing attacks, or any kind of email threats? Or do you have good client security? What are your firewalls like? So there's those conversations that you can have with, information technology, cybersecurity experts to kind of go through that. But it's not as formalized and all-inclusive of a process. So what I like to recommend to organizations is use one of the frameworks out there, right? NIST 800-171 is transitioning over to CMMC, which is Cybersecurity Maturity Model Compliance for Department of Defense contractors. There is also ISO 27001. These frameworks are more comprehensive from the standpoint of, you're actually looking at configurations of systems, identifying, gaps in what could be a good security posture, not only documenting those, but coming up with, a plan to be able to remediate those. So, that's really to summarize, that's my recommendation. Get something on paper that really truly assesses your cybersecurity position, so you can have a baseline to compare in future years. And like you kind of opened with, there is constant changes in cybersecurity, and these frameworks are adapting to be able to adjust, to address the needs of an organization to protect themselves and their data points.
Yeah, good. I failed to mention earlier, and I'm sure everyone is already a week into their celebration of Cybersecurity Awareness Month here in the month
Yeah.
of October, but it is called Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month to everyone. But it's also the start of the fourth quarter for most organizations. They're
Yeah.
looking at starting to plan for budgets, starting to think through where they need to be allocating funds. And we believe that cybersecurity should be a priority in most organizations' planning and in their budgets. So what are some of those top priorities as it relates to cybersecurity that you're hearing from clients or we're recommending clients to consider as they're preparing for 22?
Yeah, and good question. And something that I've seen a lot recently is, as risk increases and threat actors become more active and the threat landscape evolves, a lot of organizations kind of used to be able to use cybersecurity insurance as a crutch to be able to protect their business. I'm actually seeing a lot of organizations' budgets now shift to be able to continue to have that insurance company underwrite the organization. So nowadays that crutch is being removed, and actually insurance organizations are kind of driving some level of cybersecurity implementations for organizations. So and what I'm seeing, just scratching the surface with a lot of major insurance providers is, you're not going to be able to continue carrying cybersecurity insurance without multi-factor authentication. So if you don't have it today, that is definitely going to be something that you will be forced to do. So something that you want to make sure that you're incorporating into your budget cycles. Another big tool that they're looking for is, antivirus just simply isn't enough to keep up with the threat landscape. Endpoint detect and response solutions have really become the de facto standard for client security now. What I'm also seeing, and the biggest threat vector that organizations have today are email threats. So companies are really looking to invest a lot more in that area. And then, another thing that organizations fall short is you have all of these disparate cybersecurity solutions, and you really need a piece of glue that's going to kind of tie them all together and give you the visibility and transparency when a lot of events are happening on your internal network. So another thing that another trend that I really see coming about is, SIEM solutions. And what those do is those can correlate events from a lot of various systems within the organization, whether that's the edge firewall, your servers and their, error logs, desktop client security, email threat protection. It can really correlate a lot of those events. So I'm seeing a lot of organizations starting to invest in those to get better protection of their internal environments.
Yeah, that does seem to be kind of the next big step. And thankfully, some organizations are starting to figure out the business model so that it's become a little more consumable, a little more manageable from a perspective and from a resource perspective to manage all of that information. As in the past, I think it was pretty daunting. You mentioned cybersecurity insurance. You and I were both on a presentation, saw a presentation yesterday, and I don't think I've heard like this as it relates to premium increases with cybersecurity insurance, but 4 or 5 organizations have reported that they're expecting premiums to increase from 25 to 50%. And there's also starting to see carve-outs for ransomware attacks. So probably a good time to take a look at your cybersecurity insurance, what it covers, what the renewal is going to look like, and are there steps that you can take to improve your posture, which could result in a premium decrease. It may not, but it probably would be worth discussing and finding out what options might exist. I think many organizations are thinking that cybersecurity insurance is a safety net, that if all else fails, that will be there to at least provide some relief. And as the claims have increased because the activity level has just exploded, the insurance companies are having to adjust their underwriting to be able to plan for that.
Yep, they need to address that risk.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the bad guys made a lot of noise in the last year. Significant increases in attempts and attacks and phishing and all of those things, and obviously some pretty newsworthy activities that have had some devastating impact. What made businesses so vulnerable in the last year? What do you think were some of those key things? Obviously, there's some obvious ones, but what were some others?
Yeah, well, really, over the last 2 years, it's been a perfect storm that has taken us to where we are, right? Every time a business gets hacked, and they have to pay a ransom to be able to unencrypt their files, it is incentivizing these threat actors to expand their operations. I also think that social media isn't necessarily doing us any favors, right? Because those identities of people, those secret questions, a lot of those things are able to be identified by threat actors, and they're able to use artificial intelligence and mass data gathering techniques to be able to better infiltrate individuals and organizations. And with the pandemic, that's pushed a lot of our workforce remotely very quickly. And a lot of organizations, they want to continue operating their business, so they really focus on functionality, making sure that those users are able to connect into the business. And at the speed that we did that, there wasn't a lot of considerations for security aspects. So it's where we are. And as well as, there's been businesses that have struggled with top line results. And as a result, they have less money to spend on cybersecurity. So, a lot of contributing factors. But it's definitely something that businesses need to keep an eye on and be able to address.
Sure. Okay. Good. I wrote down 2 acronyms that you mentioned earlier that I want to have you follow up and explain a little bit. Before I get to that, just as a reminder, if you have questions, don't hesitate to throw those into the Q&A section of the Zoom control panel. We probably will wrap up the next 10 minutes or so get those questions thrown in. So you mentioned SIEM, the S, how you spell that. So what is that again? And, as I mentioned earlier, some organizations are figuring out a better go-to-market strategy for these solutions, but I think they typically target enterprise. And when I say enterprise, I'm talking, Coca-Cola, big organizations.
Yeah.
How has started to translate into solutions that are available to, small, the 20 to 100 kind of organizations, or even the mid-sized, to make that more affordable and more possible?
Yeah. So SIEM, it's SIEM, is Security Incident and Event Management. And, these are tools that larger organizations, have been using for years to do correlation of events for a lot of various systems. And, until, recently, a lot of the market has been focused on those enterprise clients. And, the real value of a SIEM is correlated events, right? You had an ID compromised, there's somebody that's coming in through your firewalls, the EDR is picking up something, endpoint detect and respond. So these are all disparate systems, and they're not necessarily correlating that data, through a 24/7 artificial intelligence with the security operations center, right? So if they're independent events, you're not necessarily correlating them and getting a clear response to be able to eliminate that threat actor from continuing down a path to getting access to your systems, releasing a ransomware attack. So now, there's security providers that we've partnered with as well, that can do that level of correlation, right? So you have audit trails, you're tying all these events together. It's 24/7 managing your security systems, and you think about an organization and their willingness to invest, not only what it would take to staff to be able to monitor 24/7, but also have all those systems that are storing the data and correlating it. This is now at a price point that is available to those clients that are, 20 to 100 or even larger. And it's, something that I think will become a standard over the next 2 to 3 years. And that those organizations that are managing critical, compliance needs, a lot of financial data, personally identifiable healthcare information, these are solutions that will be rolled out on a pretty broad scale. And the more clients that are on it, the more threat vectors they identify, and that they're able to proactively address. So it's exciting to see this enter into an SMB and a mid-market space over the last couple of years, and for them to fine tune it to make it more available.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. You probably saw a question came in through chat that kind of lines up with the next question that I had about the acronym. So CMMC, if you could describe that, let us know a little bit about that standard. And then the question is, you mentioned earlier that NIST is moving towards CMMC. So maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on the next one.
Yeah, so NIST 800-171 was the compliance standard that the Department of Defense has used. In 2020, they introduced CMMC, which is Cybersecurity Maturity Model Compliance. With Department of Defense contractors, under the NIST 800-171 standard, there was verbiage within the contracts that they'd have to sign as a supplier to the Department of Defense that outlined that they needed to be compliant with that framework, or put in a security system plan that outlined what items that they had to remediate and a time frame for being able to do that. They're taking more of a hard stance. So the Department of Defense has come out with this new standard, the CMMC. They've added quite a bit of compliancy control requirements that will dictate organizations need to, invest a little bit more in not only their security systems, but, people and processes. Right, separation of roles and responsibilities, level of oversight, how are they onboarding and offboarding people. So not only that, have they increased the amount of control requirements to better protect systems, but now in those Department of Defense contracts, they're not asking you to self-assess and certify through the bidding process that you have achieved those. They are now requiring that you have to be audited by a third-party auditor to sign off that you are CMMC compliant at a level, there is level 1 through 5, that is outlined in that Department of Defense contract. So a little bit of an extra step and a level of proof that the Department of Defense needs on that contract prior to even bidding on those contracts. So, we are adopting the CMMC compliance internally here at Levity to make sure that we can provide assessments, so that those organizations prior to hiring a third-party audit have already, done the cleaning and remediation necessary to be able to pass. So that's some of the things that we're working on to protect our compliance, our clients. as well as, being able to use that as a framework to help non-DoD contractors to ensure they're keeping up with the best security practices that they can achieve to protect their customer data and intellectual assets that they protect internally. So that's kind of the rundown on CMMC.
Yeah, so you mentioned several times, that specifically for government contractors, it'll be a requirement.
Yep.
But then I think you see that transitioning into organizations that have maybe aren't working directly with those organizations, but kind of become a new standard.
Yeah, and that's the way these things go, right? You have a government agency that outlines what are the best in class security practices that an organization needs to have to be able to protect their data. And then that gets pushed out, and it's a good measuring stick for other organizations to be able to utilize. And with a lot of these assessments that I do, Jeff, it's and kind of coming back to the budget strategy. There's a lot of items that you can do where it's a simple checkbox or a process change to better be able to protect your data, right? These are things that can be done at a lower cost, but a pretty high impact to your security posture. And there's other things that are major system changes, but have a lower impact on your total security posture. That's why these types of frameworks, even for businesses that aren't Department of Defense contractors, can help to identify what are those security gaps that they have, and how can they make those dollars that they have available for cybersecurity be most impactful to be able to increase their security posture. So that was the long answer to yes. CMMC compliance is a good measuring stick for businesses of all sizes and different business verticals.
Sure. Okay. So I'm just going to continue to follow up on this questioning. Thanks for submitting these. So, is organization needs to get started? They need to be heading down this path. They know for whether that's the reasons or others. What's kind of the first step in the CMMC process to start to consider?
Yep.
And kind of the follow-up question is NIST kind of the step one and CMMC is the step two or tier two, or is it not really that kind of a progression?
So the CMMC framework, like I said in the beginning, level 1 through level 5. Level 3 is the closest to the NIST 800-171. They are replacing that NIST framework with CMMC. So that the level NIST 800-171 had 110 different control areas that you had to be compliant in. The level 3 compliance adds roughly 35 new control requirements that you have to be able to identify and address. And then as you go from level 3, 4, and 5, it adds a number of control requirements. My understanding, Jeff, is that the Department of Defense primary contracts, these are huge defense contractors. Raytheon as an example, they would be a level 5 and have a level of security compliance that they'd need to be able to attain. Whereas second tier contractors, which are, supplying those primaries, those contracts may be written at a level 3, which is similar to NIST 800-171. Does that answer your question, Jeff?
I think so, yeah. And we're happy to talk. It looks like the question was answered, so thank you for confirming that. I think the initial question, which is, kind of where would you get started? Shameless plug.
Yep, of course.
We can help with that. can be available to have an initial discussion about where you're at, what you want to do, what the timeline needs to look like, and if there's something that we can help with, we can put a plan together to work through that. Obviously, first call is more discovery, and we put a plan together after that. So if you'd like to reach out to one of us, let me get to the slide where that information exists with our contact info, and we can get you in touch with the right people to get that started.
Yeah.
Right, so I will. Right, Josh.
Yeah, and just happy to have those cybersecurity assessment discussions. That's really kind of the starting point. And then through that process we can outline a timeline to be able to provide that assessment and get you the results to improve your cybersecurity. Great time to be doing it during the budget season, Jeff.
Yeah, good point. All right, well, thanks everyone for attending. A good discussion, I think. Hopefully it was valuable for you. Make sure that you grab your phone, grab the camera setting, hover over this QR code. A URL will pop up that you can click on to claim your coffee card, your gift card for joining us this morning. Or if you're really fast at typing or screen capturing, you can grab this long URL and drop that into a browser as well. Don't forget to check levityit.com/events for anything coming up. We are super excited about getting out in the world again, out in the field, and hopefully doing some in-person events in places where that's possible. So keep an eye on levityit.com events. Of course, we always try to get those to hit your inbox as well. As mentioned earlier, it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and so we're distributing some really good content throughout the month. If you'd like to make sure that you're going to get that content, go to levityit.com/cybersecurity, enter in your email address, and we'll make sure you are on those distribution groups. So once again, Josh, thanks for joining me. Really great conversation. Glad to have you on the team to share some of this great content. And of course, we'd love to help further your opportunity to be more aware, more compliant, and have a good program in place from a cybersecurity perspective, so that we can, so we can help you move forward and elevate your security. One other thing that did just get posted by our team is we have some posters available if you'd want to get some of those to put around in your facility, and you can claim those by going to levityit.com/posters, and we'll get some printed off and sent to you. We actually have the equipment to do that, thanks to our friends at Gordon Flash. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great weekend. Josh, thanks again for your time, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a good day.